Tiana woke up that morning with a heavy sigh, the kind that sits in your chest before the day even starts. The mirror on her dresser reflected a sleepy face framed by dark, coiled hair that she had spent hours braiding the night before. She adjusted one of the twists, smoothed her edges, and whispered to her reflection, "You're fine. You're beautiful." It was her little ritual, words meant to guard her heart before stepping into a world that didn't always see her that way. The bus ride to school was quiet. She sat by the window, earbuds in, ignoring the sideways looks from a few kids in the back who liked to throw words like monkey and tar, as if they were jokes. She'd learned not to react. Reacting only gave them power. Still, every laugh she heard behind her made her shoulders tense. She counted the stops like tiny victories. One closer to getting off this bus, one closer to pretending she was invisible again. When she walked through the school doors, the smell of disinfectant and cafeteria food mixed into something uniquely miserable. Her school wasn't in a bad neighborhood, but it wasn't a kind one either. People liked to pretend bullying didn't happen there, that they were better than that. But Tiana knew the truth. Sometimes cruelty wore expensive shoes and a cheerleader's smile. She moved quickly through the halls, hugging her books to her chest. Locker 117, her safe spot, was wedged between a cracked wall and the janitor's closet, where she could hide for a few seconds and breathe. Her best friend, Mia, was absent that day, homesick with the flu. Without her, the world seemed louder. She heard snickers from a few feet away. "Hey, look, it's Midnight herself," a voice said. Trevor, captain of the soccer team, flanked by his usual crowd. They laughed like they'd heard the funniest joke in the world. Tiana didn't even glance up. She just turned her combination lock, hands shaking slightly. "Don't ignore me, I'm talking to you," Trevor said, stepping closer. His tone had that taunting rhythm bullies use, a rhythm meant to draw blood without showing the knife. She stayed quiet, hoping the bell would save her. When it finally rang, she slipped away into her classroom, heart thudding, cheeks hot with humiliation. The morning passed in a blur of words she couldn't focus on. Her teachers spoke. The clock ticked, but all she could think about was how small she felt. At lunch, she sat alone in the far corner of the cafeteria, scrolling through her phone. She tried not to notice when the same group entered, loud and laughing, moving toward her table with the confidence of people who never had to look over their shoulders. "Hey, Tiana," one of the girls called, sugary sweet. "We were just wondering, is your hair even real?" The table erupted in laughter. Tiana clenched her fists under the table, every nerve in her body screaming to run. Instead, she stood up and walked away, refusing to give them what they wanted: tears, anger, proof that they mattered. She thought she was safe once she slipped out the back door, near the gym. But the group followed, their footsteps echoing on the concrete. She turned and faced them, finally tired of shrinking. "What do you want?" she asked, voice trembling. Trevor smirked. "Just having a little fun. Don't be so sensitive." He held a can of soda in his hand, cold, sweating, full. "You look thirsty." Before she could react, the liquid splashed across her hair, her face, soaking her clothes. The cold burned against her skin. Someone recorded on their phone. Another threw a handful of chips at her. The laughter was deafening, cruel, sharp, endless. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the ground. The concrete scraped her palms. She could hear them chanting something. She couldn't even make out the words anymore. The edges of her vision started to blur. She tried to push herself up, to breathe, to find the strength she always promised herself she had. But the world tilted. "Hey, stop." A distant voice broke through the noise. A teacher, maybe. Feet scattered. The video camera lowered. The last thing Tiana saw was the gray sky above her, dull and heavy, the sound of running footsteps fading into silence. When she opened her eyes again, bright lights surrounded her. A monitor beeped softly beside her ear. A hospital ceiling. Clean, white, unfamiliar. Her throat felt dry. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. Then she heard her mother's voice, trembling and furious and full of love. "Baby, you're safe now," she said, stroking Tiana's damp hair. Tiana wanted to believe her. But all she could feel was the weight of that laughter still echoing in her mind, cruel and endless, even in the quiet room where she now lay. The next morning, Sunlight streamed through the hospital blinds, cutting across Tiana's blanket in thin gold stripes. She blinked slowly, trying to piece together how she'd gotten there. Every muscle in her body ached, but it wasn't the bruises that hurt the most, it was the memory of laughter. That sound had burrowed deep inside her, looping over and over, sharper than any slap. Her mother sat by her bedside, eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. A paper cup of cold coffee rested untouched beside her. "Hey, sweetheart," her mother said softly, brushing a hand across Tiana's forehead. "How are you feeling?" Tiana wanted to say "I'm okay," but the words wouldn't come. Her throat felt thick, her chest tight. Tears stung her eyes instead. "I just wanted them to stop," she whispered. Her mother gripped her hand, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. There was a knock at the door. A nurse entered, followed by a police officer, a woman with a kind face and a badge that caught the light. "Good morning, Tiana. I'm Officer Ramirez," she said gently. "I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances. We just want to make sure you're safe." Tiana nodded slowly, staring at the officer's notepad. The words incident, assault, minor victim floated in her mind like poison. "Are they?" she started, then stopped. "The kids, are they in trouble?" Officer Ramirez gave a small, firm nod. "Yes, someone recorded what happened, and it's already circulating online. We're investigating." She hesitated before adding, "You don't need to worry about going back to that school just yet." Her mother straightened in her chair. "I can't believe anyone could do this to her," and everyone just stood there filming it. Like it was entertainment. Her voice cracked. "My baby could have died." Ramirez looked between them with sympathy. "Unfortunately, that video is everywhere now. But it might also help bring accountability. People are angry, and a lot of them are standing up for your daughter." Tiana frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" The officer smiled softly. "You're trending online, sweetheart. Hashtags, messages, people speaking out. It's a lot." Later that afternoon, after the police left, a young journalist from the local news came by, holding a small camera and a gentle tone. Her mother had agreed to a short interview, only if Tiana felt up to it. She hesitated at first, staring down at her hands, but then she remembered the faces of her bullies, the cruel laughter that had haunted her dreams all night. Maybe, if she spoke, she could take back some of what they stole. The journalist clicked on the camera, light blinking red. "Tiana," she began softly, "you don't have to say anything you're not ready to. But people are listening. Is there anything you'd like them to know?" For a long moment, Tiana didn't answer. The room buzzed quietly with hospital sounds, distant monitors, footsteps in the hall, her mother's breathing. Then she looked up, eyes steady but filled with something deeper than anger. "Everyone keeps asking me if I want them punished," she said, voice hoarse but clear. "But I don't want revenge. I just want them to understand what they did. Why it hurts so much." The reporter looked surprised. "Can you tell us what you mean by that?" Tiana took a slow breath. "They called me things they thought were just jokes. But those words come from real pain, from history. They made me feel like I didn't belong, like my skin was something to be ashamed of. I just want people to see how easy it is to break someone, and how hard it is to heal after." Her mother reached for her hand, eyes glistening. The reporter turned off the camera, visibly moved. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're incredibly brave." By the next day, Tiana's words had spread farther than anyone expected. News outlets picked up the interview. Celebrities reposted her quote, calling her a voice for every kid who's ever been bullied. Her name trended for hours, not as a victim, but as a symbol. Messages poured in from strangers. Kids who'd been bullied, adults who remembered their own scars, teachers asking how to make their classrooms safer. But fame, even the unintentional kind, came with weight. As she scrolled through her phone, she saw thousands of supportive messages, and a few cruel ones, too. Some called her too dramatic. Others said she should toughen up. Her chest tightened, but she kept reading, her thumb trembling. For every hateful comment, there were dozens of kind ones, but the hate still stung. Her mother took the phone gently from her hand. "You don't need to read all that right now. Let people talk. You just rest." Tiana nodded, but inside she felt something stirring, a quiet, steady strength. Maybe she couldn't control what people said, but she could control what she did next. If people were listening, she would make sure they heard the truth, not just about her pain, but about every kid who felt small and silenced. That night, as the hospital lights dimmed, she whispered again to herself, the same words she'd said every morning in front of the mirror. "You're fine. You're beautiful." But this time, it wasn't a shield. It was a promise. The auditorium smelled faintly of dust and fresh paint. Rows of folding chairs creaked under the weight of restless students, their whispers rippling like soft wind through tall grass. The principal stood at the podium, giving his usual introduction, words about community healing and learning from mistakes. But everyone was really waiting for Tiana. She sat backstage, palms damp, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. It had been 3 months since that awful day behind the gym. The bruises had faded, but the memory hadn't. Every morning she still hesitated before walking into school, scanning the halls for faces she used to fear. Things had changed, or at least, people acted like they had. The bullies had been suspended, forced into counseling and community service. The school had introduced diversity workshops and posters about kindness. But Tiana knew a poster couldn't change hearts. Words could, though. That's why she was here. When her name was called, applause filled the room, hesitant at first, then stronger. She stepped out into the light, clutching her notes, though she already knew she wouldn't need them. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the microphone. For a second, she saw the faces that once mocked her. Trevor was there, sitting in the front row, his usual smirk replaced by something unreadable. 2 of the girls who had laughed that day sat beside him, fidgeting. For the first time, she didn't feel small. "Hi," she began, her voice steadier than she expected. "My name is Tiana, and some of you already know what happened to me." A murmur moved through the crowd. She took a breath. "But I'm not here to talk about the pain, not just the pain. I want to talk about what came after." The room quieted. Even the air seemed to hold still. "When I woke up in the hospital, I thought my life was over. I thought the only thing people would ever see when they looked at me was that video, that girl on the ground, crying. But something happened. People started reaching out. Strangers, kids from other schools, teachers. They told me they saw themselves in me." She smiled faintly. "And that made me realize something. Maybe what happened wasn't just about cruelty. Maybe it was a mirror." She paused, letting her words sink in. When people laugh at someone because of how they look, or where they come from, or the color of their skin, it's not just mean, it's learned. It comes from somewhere. From parents, from TV, from silence. And silence, she said, her voice tightening, is just another form of permission. In the front row, Trevor lowered his eyes. His shoulders slumped. Tiana continued, "For weeks, I hated you, the ones who hurt me. I wanted you to feel what I felt. But hate, it's heavy. It sits on you until you forget who you are. I didn't want to carry that anymore." She looked straight at Trevor now. "So, I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I refused to let it define me." The words hung in the air, weighty and luminous. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Others wiped tears. Somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. Slow, hesitant, until the sound spread through the entire room. After the assembly, students lined up to talk to her. Some thanked her. Others apologized for staying silent. A few admitted they'd laughed along that day, too afraid not to. Tiana listened to each of them, nodding, her chest both aching and warm. When most of the crowd had gone, Trevor approached her. He looked different, smaller somehow. "Tiana," he began, his voice rough. "I don't even know how to say sorry for what I did. I was stupid. I thought it was funny. But it wasn't. It was ugly." He paused, eyes glistening. "I joined that anti-bullying club you started. I don't expect you to forgive me again, but I just wanted you to know." Tiana studied him for a long moment. Then she gave a small nod. "I meant what I said," she replied. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean we start doing better." He nodded, swallowing hard, before turning away. As the lights dimmed in the empty auditorium, Tiana sat on the edge of the stage, her legs dangling over the side. For the first time in a long while, she felt peace, not the fragile kind that disappears when people look at you wrong, but the steady kind that comes when you take control of your own story. Outside, the sky was a bright, endless blue. Students spilled out of the building, talking, laughing, some glancing her way, smiling genuinely this time. She walked toward the doors, the sunlight spilling across her face. She had entered that school year afraid of being seen. Now, people saw her, truly saw her, not as a victim, but as a voice that refused to stay silent. And maybe, just maybe, that was how change began. Not with anger, but with the courage to forgive and the power to speak.